They laughed at the alien fat girl, until she quietly asked a human for work and changed everything. The trade station hung in the black emptiness of space like a small jewel, bright with lights and movement. Ships of all shapes and sizes docked there, each carrying goods from worlds far and wide. Aliens walked alongside humans, some tall and thin, some short and round, some covered in fur or scales. The air smelled faintly of oil, metal, and the spices of faraway planets. It was a busy place, loud and chaotic, but it was home to many who had nowhere else to go. Laroa stood at the edge of the main platform, her large frame casting a shadow over the floor. She was different from everyone else. Her skin was smooth and pale green, and her round body made her slower than the other aliens. Her eyes were gentle, but often tired from the work she tried to do and the insults she heard. The other aliens whispered when she passed. "Look at her," they said. "So slow, so useless. Why is she even here?" She did not answer them. She had learned long ago that words from others could hurt, but they did not have to control her. She watched the workers move, memorizing the patterns of cargo lifts and repair stations. She had a mind that could solve problems even if her body seemed clumsy. She hoped that someday, someone would notice what she could do. Humans were new to the station. Most of them kept to their small area, cleaning, repairing, or moving boxes. Ethan Brooks was one of them. He was tall, with brown hair and green eyes, and a quiet way about him that made people underestimate him. He had been watching Laroa for days, noticing how she never fought back, never complained but quietly tried to help where she could. He wondered why no one gave her a chance. The platform shook as a small cargo ship landed. Sparks flew, and a loud alarm rang for a moment before the system corrected itself. Laroa stepped back, careful not to stumble. A group of tall alien workers saw her and laughed. "Watch out, fat girl," one said, his voice full of mockery. "Don't crush anything important." The others joined in, their laughter echoing across the platform. Laroa felt her cheeks burn, though her skin color did not change much. She bowed slightly and moved aside, letting them pass. She did not speak. Inside, the cargo hall was even busier. Crates moved on conveyor belts, machines hummed, and workers shouted to each other. Laroa followed silently, picking up a fallen crate. It was heavier than she expected, but she managed. A small human boy nearby, Noah King, watched her struggle. "Need some help?" he asked. Laroa shook her head. "I can do it," she said quietly. Noah shrugged and went back to his work. She set the crate down gently and wiped sweat from her forehead. She knew she would have to work harder than everyone else just to be seen as capable. Later, in the repair bay, machines whined and clanked. Laroa studied an old power generator. It was ancient technology, almost forgotten by most workers, but she understood it. She had read about these generators in old texts her species had passed down. Others walked by, not noticing her, calling her names under their breath. She ignored them, focusing on the machine. She traced her fingers over the panels, adjusting small wires, tightening connections. The generator started to hum smoothly, more stable than it had in years. She smiled to herself. Small victories were enough for now. Ethan passed by the bay, carrying a toolbox. He stopped when he saw the generator running perfectly. "Hey," he said, "did you fix that?" Laroa glanced at him. "Yes," she said simply. Ethan nodded, impressed. "Good work," he said. He did not say it loud, the other workers would not approve of praising her. She only nodded in return, not used to receiving compliments. She had learned that actions spoke louder than words. The day passed slowly. Laroa moved from one task to another, carrying crates, adjusting machines, helping where she could. Every time she made progress, someone laughed at her or mocked her. One alien, a tall figure named Zarin, threw a small box at her feet. "Maybe try not to break it this time, fat girl," he sneered. Laroa picked it up without a word and placed it carefully where it belonged. She did not retaliate. She had a plan, even if no one could see it yet. When the workday ended, Laroa stepped outside onto a small balcony overlooking the station's lights. The stars stretched endlessly, sparkling with possibilities. She watched ships fly past, imagining herself on one of them, respected and trusted. She took a deep breath. She could feel the weight of the day, the tiredness in her limbs, the sting of words that were not hers. But she also felt something stronger, determination. She would prove that she could do more than anyone imagined. She would not laugh, not cry, not beg. She would show her worth quietly, step by step. Ethan joined her, carrying a small container of water. "Long day," he said, handing it to her. Laroa accepted it without speaking. She knew he did not understand everything, but he had seen her work. He had noticed something others ignored. She was grateful for that small recognition. "Thank you," she said quietly. Ethan smiled. "Don't mention it," he said. He looked at the stars too, thinking about the quiet determination of the alien before him. As night fell over the station, lights blinking and ships leaving for distant worlds, Laroa made a silent promise. Tomorrow she would ask for work. Not begging, not demanding. She would simply show that she could help, and maybe, just maybe, someone would finally give her the chance she had waited for. The laughter from the other aliens still rang in her ears, but she did not let it shake her. She was ready for the next step. She would wait, watch, and then act. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a small spark of hope, a spark that one human, at least, had seen her for who she could be. She would grow that spark, quietly, steadily, until it became a fire the entire station could not ignore. The next morning, Laroa arrived at the station earlier than anyone else. The lights were still dim, and only a few humans were moving about. Ethan was already there, checking tools in the maintenance area. He looked up and saw her standing quietly at the entrance. "Good morning," he said, a little surprised. Laroa nodded. She did not speak at first. She had something important to do, but she wanted to do it carefully. After a few moments, she stepped closer. "Can I work with you today?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. Ethan blinked. He had expected her to stay quiet, maybe watch, but she was asking for work. He looked at her carefully. "You want to help me?" he asked. Laroa nodded again. She did not say more. Ethan hesitated, knowing the other workers would laugh if they saw this. But he also saw the determination in her eyes. He finally said, "Okay, I'll give you something to do. Follow me." He led her to a storage room filled with old equipment. Some machines were broken, others needed cleaning. Ethan handed her a toolkit. "Start with the generator here," he said. Laroa looked at it. It was old, with wires tangled and panels loose. Other workers had ignored it for weeks. She smiled slightly. This was her kind of work. As she began, the other aliens started to notice. They whispered, pointing fingers. "Look at her, working with a human, what a joke," one said. "She will break it," another added. Laroa ignored them. She focused on the wires, checking connections carefully. She moved slowly but confidently, her large hands surprisingly precise. Ethan watched her, impressed. "You know what you're doing," he said quietly. She nodded but did not stop to talk. Her hands moved with skill and care. Hours passed. Laroa cleaned parts, fixed loose wires, and adjusted circuits. Slowly, the generator began to hum steadily. It worked better than it had in years. Ethan tested it. This is amazing," he said, almost in disbelief. Laroa only smiled faintly. She had expected it. Results mattered more than praise. By midday, other humans noticed. Maya Lopez, a human analyst, peeked in. "Did she fix that all by herself?" she asked Ethan. Ethan nodded. "Yes," quietly. No one expected it. Maya raised her eyebrows. She could see that Laroa was different. "She should get credit," Maya said. Ethan shrugged. "We'll see. She wants to work, not praise." Meanwhile, the mocking aliens grew more frustrated. Their whispers became louder. "How can a fat girl do this?" Zarin said, shaking his head. "We know everything. She can't compete with us." They laughed, but it sounded forced. Deep down, they were curious. Something about her work was better than theirs, even if they did not want to admit it. Laroa did not notice them. She moved on to other machines. She cleaned a conveyor belt, fixed a broken arm on a loader, and adjusted old energy cells. Everything she touched began to work smoother. Some of the older humans stopped to watch, surprised. No one had expected her to be so capable. Ethan followed, helping when she asked. Together, they made a team that no one had seen coming. By afternoon, the station began to notice changes. Machines that had been broken for weeks started to run again. Power fluctuations stopped. Cargo moved faster. Even the aliens who had mocked her had to pause and watch. One alien worker, tall and gray-skinned, muttered, How is she doing this?" His friends shrugged, uneasy. They had no answer. Laroa worked quietly. She never spoke about her skills. She did not brag, she just fixed problems one by one. Ethan marveled at her focus. "I don't understand it," he said. "You know things about these machines that no one else remembers." Laroa looked at him and smiled faintly. "I have studied them," she said simply. That was all. She did not say she had learned from ancient texts of her people, books no one else had read. She wanted to prove herself through work, not words. As the day went on, the humans began to rely on her more. Small jobs became bigger. Ethan gave her instructions for complex repairs. She handled them with patience and care. Sometimes she made suggestions that improved the work even more. No one else had thought of these ideas. Slowly, the humans began to trust her judgment. The mocking aliens were growing angry. They tried to interrupt her work. "Step aside, fat girl," Zarin barked. "You are doing it all wrong." Laroa did not argue. She calmly stepped back, checked her work, and showed that it was correct. The machines worked perfectly. The aliens frowned, frustrated that their insults had no effect. By evening, the workday was ending. Ethan and Laroa finished the last tasks together. The machines were running smoothly, cargo was sorted, and power systems were stable. Ethan looked at Laroa. "You've done more than anyone expected," he said. Laroa nodded. She felt tired but satisfied. Small victories mattered. She had started to show what she could do. As they walked to the exit, other workers stopped to look. Some were whispering. Some were staring in disbelief. Laroa did not notice them. She walked steadily, side by side with Ethan. He had begun to understand her. She was quiet, but her mind was sharp. Her strength was not in speed or size, but in patience, knowledge, and determination. That night, Laroa sat alone in a quiet corner of the station. She reflected on the day. She had asked for work. She had been ignored at first, laughed at, even mocked. But she had done her job well, quietly, without fighting, without words. And now people were starting to notice. She felt a small spark of pride. Tomorrow she would do more. She would show that one quiet alien could make a difference, and that laughter could be replaced with respect if one was patient and skilled. Ethan passed by her corner. "I think you did well today," he said softly. Laroa looked up. "Thank you," she said quietly. She did not need more. Just one human who saw her was enough. Ethan smiled and walked on. Laroa returned to her thoughts. She planned for tomorrow. There were more machines, more problems, and more people to help. She would continue quietly, patiently, and skillfully. She would show that even someone laughed at and called useless could change the world one step at a time. She slept that night thinking of the machines, of the humans, of the whispers of the aliens. She dreamed of fixing, improving, helping, and being trusted. She knew the work would not be easy. There would be more laughter, more doubt, and more challenges. But she also knew she had started something. She had begun to show that strength could come from patience, knowledge, and quiet determination, not just speed or size. The spark of change had begun, and Laroa was ready to grow it, step by step, day by day. She would prove herself not with words but with action. And when the time came, the station would no longer laugh. It would listen. It would respect. And perhaps it would learn that someone quiet, someone laughed at, someone different, could be the one to make everything better. The morning sun spilled across the trade station, painting the metal floors with light. Laroa arrived early again, carrying her small toolkit. She did not rush, did not speak much, and did not look around at the whispers of others. She had learned that quiet focus was her strength. Today, she had more work to do, and more people were beginning to notice. Ethan was already in the maintenance bay, checking the tools and preparing the workstations. When he saw Laroa, he gave a small nod. "Ready to start?" he asked. Laroa nodded back. Together, they began moving to the first task, an old conveyor system that had been breaking down repeatedly. Aliens who had mocked her were already at the site, but they stayed back, watching with suspicion. Laroa examined the system, her eyes moving over the machinery carefully. She noted worn gears, loose bolts, and misaligned belts. She did not rush. Step by step, she tightened bolts, adjusted belts, and aligned the gears. Ethan assisted where needed, handing her tools and observing her method. Slowly, the system began to work smoothly. Crates moved without stopping, machines hummed steadily, and the air was filled with a quiet efficiency that had been missing for weeks. Other humans started to take notice. Maya Lopez approached, holding a data pad. "Look at this," she said, showing Ethan the readouts. "Power efficiency is up by 10%. These machines should have taken double the time today, but they are working faster than before." Ethan glanced at the pad, then at Laroa. He smiled. "She's amazing," he said quietly. Laroa heard him but did not smile widely. Small, quiet pride filled her instead. Results were all that mattered. The aliens who had laughed at her were growing uneasy. Zarin, the tall, gray-skinned one, stepped forward. How is she doing this?" he muttered. His voice shook with frustration. Others whispered among themselves. Some tried to argue that their methods were better, that her work was just beginner luck. But when they looked closely, they saw that machines worked perfectly, with no errors. Their laughter had begun to fade, replaced with confusion and doubt. Laroa moved on to a section of the station that had been neglected for months. Old energy cells were leaking, causing small fires and frequent shutdowns. Most workers avoided this area, claiming it was too dangerous. Laroa did not hesitate. She studied the energy cells, noting the weak points and possible solutions. Step by step, she replaced worn parts, reinforced connections, and adjusted energy flows. Sparks flew, but she was careful. Slowly, the system stabilized, glowing steadily. The danger passed. Ethan watched in awe. "You're incredible," he said. "No one else could have done this." Laroa shook her head gently. "I just fix what is broken," she said quietly. It was true. She did not need praise. Her work was enough. She was learning the patterns of the station, understanding how every machine, every cable, every system worked together. She felt a deep satisfaction in solving problems others ignored. By afternoon, the changes were noticeable across the station. Machines that had failed repeatedly now ran smoothly. Small cargo lifts moved efficiently, saving time for all workers. Energy systems were stable, and even old computers began to process faster. Humans began to rely on her judgment more and more. Ethan and Maya began asking for her advice before attempting repairs, and she quietly provided solutions that no one else had thought of. The aliens who had mocked her could no longer ignore her. Some tried to challenge her work. "You missed a bolt," one said, approaching with a sneer. Laroa calmly examined the machine. The bolt was tight, correct. She adjusted a different part slightly, and the machine ran better than before. The alien stepped back, unsure how to respond. His words had no effect. Her quiet skill was undeniable. Even station supervisors began to notice the improvements. A human supervisor, Carolyn Reed, came to the maintenance bay. "What is happening here?" she asked, examining the machines. Ethan explained Laroa's work, careful to avoid the jealousy of others. Carolyn studied the readouts, then looked at Laroa. You fix things no one else could," she said, surprised. Laroa bowed slightly. "I just work," she said simply. Her humility impressed Carolyn more than the results themselves. More humans joined the bay, curious about Laroa's methods. Noah King, the young human who had once watched her struggle, approached nervously. "Can I help?" he asked. Laroa nodded. She gave him small tasks, showing him carefully how to check systems and replace parts. Noah followed her instructions exactly. The machines worked better than ever, and he felt proud to assist her. Laroa smiled faintly at his enthusiasm. Patience and teaching were as important as repairing machines. As the day continued, a pattern began to appear. Small problems that had been ignored or assumed unsolvable were disappearing. Machines ran faster, energy flows stabilized, and the station felt lighter, smoother, more alive. Humans who had been frustrated with constant breakdowns began to whisper about Laroa's talent. "She is making a difference," one said. "We should listen to her more." But not all were pleased. Some aliens grew jealous. They could not understand how a quiet, large alien who had been mocked could outperform them. Whispers turned to arguments. Zarin approached Laroa as she worked. "You think you are better than us?" he demanded. Laroa looked at him calmly. "I only fix what is broken," she said. Her voice was steady, not loud, not angry. She did not challenge him. She did not need to. Her results spoke louder than words. By evening, Laroa and Ethan completed the last tasks for the day. The station's energy systems were stable, machines ran smoothly, and cargo was sorted more efficiently than ever before. Humans stopped by, thanking them quietly. Aliens lingered, still unsure how to respond. Laroa felt tired but satisfied. She had begun to change the station, quietly, one system at a time. After the workday, Laroa sat on a quiet platform overlooking the station's lights. Ethan joined her, carrying a small container of water. "You've done so much today," he said. Laroa accepted the water without speaking much. She did not need praise. The work itself was reward enough. "People are noticing," Ethan continued. "Humans, aliens, some are starting to respect you." Laroa nodded slightly. She knew it was happening slowly, step by step. She thought about the day. The mocking aliens, the curious humans, the failing machines, everything had been a challenge. But by focusing quietly and working carefully, she had begun to change things. She understood that respect was earned through action, not words. The laughter of others had less power now. Her quiet strength, her knowledge, and her patience were beginning to matter more than the insults she had heard. As night fell, ships moved past the station, lights flashing in the darkness. Laroa watched, thinking of what the next day could bring. She had begun small, fixing machines and proving her skill. Tomorrow she would continue. She would reach more systems, help more people, and quietly show that even someone laughed at could have a great impact. The spark of change had grown brighter and she was ready to carry it forward. Ethan looked at her. "You know," he said softly, "you're not just fixing machines, you're changing how people see things." Laroa glanced at him, her expression calm. "I just fix what is broken," she repeated. But inside she knew it was more than that. Quietly, without fighting, without boasting, she was changing the station. She was showing humans and aliens alike that skill, patience, and determination mattered more than speed, size, or laughter. And somewhere deep inside, a small smile formed. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, and more eyes watching her. But she was ready. She had started something. She had begun to show that one quiet alien could make a difference, and that those who had laughed might one day see her true value. She would continue, quietly, steadily, and skillfully. One day the station, and perhaps the galaxy, would no longer laugh at her. They would watch, and they would learn the station was quieter than usual in the morning. Most of the workers were busy with routine tasks, but Laroa felt a tension in the air. Something was off. She noticed the hum of the power systems fluctuating slightly, and a soft vibration ran through the floors. She walked carefully toward the main control area, her eyes scanning the panels. Ethan was already there, checking readings on the screens. "Have you noticed this?" Ethan asked, pointing at the energy graphs. "The core system is fluctuating. It shouldn't be doing this." Laroa moved closer, her large hands gliding over the controls. She studied the readings. "The energy flow is unstable," she said quietly. "If it continues, it could overload the system." Ethan frowned. "Overload? That would shut down the station. Maybe worse. We need someone to fix it now." Humans began moving quickly, alerting others, but the aliens in the station were confused and afraid. Many of them had never seen the core behave this way. They muttered among themselves, unsure what to do. Zarin and his group stood at a distance, whispering. "Maybe she can't fix this," one said. "We were right, she is useless." Laroa heard the whispers but did not respond. She had dealt with doubt before. She focused on the problem. She approached the main console, reading ancient diagrams of the station's energy systems. These were diagrams most had forgotten, systems her species had used long ago. She traced her fingers over the patterns, seeing where the imbalance had begun. "The stabilization circuits are failing," she said softly. "They need to be rerouted." Ethan looked at her, surprised. "Rerouted? Are you sure?" She nodded. "Yes, follow my instructions." The humans began moving faster, following her lead. Laroa gave clear, quiet commands, telling them which circuits to adjust and which valves to open. She worked quickly, hands steady, mind calm. Sparks flew from one malfunctioning panel, but she ignored the small danger, focusing only on the energy flows. Ethan moved beside her, carrying tools and helping where she directed. They worked together, side by side, without a word of argument. Aliens who had mocked her earlier were now watching in silence. They could not understand how someone they had laughed at could take control of the crisis. Zarin's mouth opened to speak, but no words came out. Laroa did not look at them. She was focused entirely on the failing system. Her calmness gave the humans confidence. Even those who had doubted her followed her lead. The core continued to fluctuate, and alarms began to sound throughout the station. Lights blinked red. Humans called out warnings, moving quickly but carefully. Laroa stayed calm. "Slowly, carefully," she instructed. "Don't rush. If you rush, it will fail completely." Ethan adjusted a circuit as she pointed. "Almost there," she whispered. The energy flow was chaotic, but she could feel where it needed guidance. Her hands moved over the panels, connecting circuits, redirecting energy and stabilizing failing systems. Minutes felt like hours. Sparks flew, machines hummed violently, and the station shook slightly. The aliens were panicked. "It's going to blow," one shouted. But Laroa ignored the fear around her. She had faced challenges before, but never on this scale. She did not panic. She knew her knowledge, her patience, and her careful hands could make the difference. She worked steadily, never slowing, never stopping. Ethan passed her a tool. "Here, use this." She took it without a word and adjusted a final circuit. A soft hum replaced the violent noises. The panels glowed steadily. The alarms quieted. The core system had stabilized. Humans looked at her in disbelief. The station was safe. Silence followed. No one moved. Then Ethan breathed out a long sigh. "She did it," he said quietly. "She actually did it." Laroa stepped back from the console, her large frame still calm. She looked at the humans around her, then at the aliens. The aliens could only stare. They had expected failure. Instead, the station was safe because of her. Zarin stepped forward, hesitating. How did you do this?" he asked, voice trembling. Laroa met his gaze calmly. "I studied the systems," she said softly. "I fix what is broken. This is no different." He looked down, unable to argue. The machines around them ran perfectly. No one could deny her skill. The station supervisor, Carolyn Reed, arrived, rushing past the humans to see the stabilized system. "What happened?" she demanded. Ethan explained quickly. Carolyn turned to Laroa. "You saved the station," she said, astonished. Laroa bowed slightly. "I only worked," she replied. Her humility was remarkable. She did not boast or demand praise. She had acted, and that was enough. Humans began to cheer quietly, clapping each other on the back. Even some aliens, though reluctant, nodded in respect. The laughter and mocking from before had vanished, replaced with awe. People began to understand that quiet skill could outperform loud words and mockery. Laroa had proven herself beyond doubt. After the crisis, Ethan and Laroa walked through the station. "You were amazing," Ethan said softly. "No one else could have done that." Laroa shook her head. "I just fixed what was broken," she said simply. But inside she felt a quiet pride. She had faced doubt, laughter, and fear and had succeeded. Later, in a meeting with the station council, the humans and aliens gathered. Laroa was present, quiet as always. She explained, in simple words, what needed to be done to prevent another failure. The council listened carefully. Her calm manner and knowledge impressed them more than words or displays of strength ever could. Even those who had laughed at her before now looked at her with respect. Zarin and his group stood aside, humbled. "We underestimated her," one admitted quietly. The truth was undeniable. Laroa had saved lives, prevented disaster, and done so without anger, boasting, or fighting. Her quiet patience and skill had changed the way everyone saw her. That evening, the station was calm. Machines hummed perfectly, lights glowed steadily, and humans and aliens alike began cleaning up the chaos left by the crisis. Laroa sat in her usual corner, watching quietly. Ethan approached, offering her a container of water. "You did more than just fix things," he said. "You taught everyone a lesson without saying a word." Laroa accepted the water, her face calm. She had learned long ago that actions mattered more than words. She thought about the day. The fear, the danger, the whispers of doubt, all of it had tested her. She had remained calm, worked carefully, and relied on her knowledge. The station had survived because she did not give in to panic or anger. She had shown that patience, skill, and quiet determination could overcome even the greatest challenges. As night fell, ships flew past the station, carrying goods to distant worlds. Laroa looked at them, imagining the possibilities. She had begun to change how people saw her. Humans now respected her. Some aliens were beginning to understand her worth. And the mocking laughter from before had vanished, replaced by silence and awe. Ethan stood beside her. "You really are different," he said quietly. "The way you think, the way you work, people will remember this." Laroa nodded. She knew tomorrow would bring more challenges, more machines to fix, more eyes watching her. But she was ready. She had proven herself today, and that was only the beginning. She had faced a crisis that could have destroyed the station. She had succeeded quietly, carefully, without seeking attention. And she knew that this was the moment that would change everything. Her quiet strength, patience, and knowledge had not only saved the station, they had begun to change the hearts and minds of those around her. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a spark of hope. A spark that one day, her work, her patience, and her quiet determination would show everyone that true strength was not in laughter, mockery, or size. It was in skill, calm, and the courage to act when others could not. She was ready for whatever came next. The station, and everyone in it, would never forget her. The station was quiet in the early morning, but the air felt different. Something had shifted. Humans and aliens alike moved with a sense of respect, watching the machines run smoothly and the systems remain stable. Laroa arrived with her usual calm pace, her large frame moving steadily among the workers. She carried her toolkit, but today she felt something new, a quiet confidence that had grown from the events of the previous days. Ethan was already in the maintenance bay, arranging tools and checking the systems. When he saw Laroa, he smiled. "Ready for another day?" he asked. Laroa nodded, her expression calm but determined. She had begun to see that her quiet work could inspire others. She did not need praise, but she could feel the respect growing around her. As she moved through the station, she noticed humans quietly observing her, some whispering to each other. Even the aliens who had once mocked her were hesitant to speak. Zarin stood at a distance, watching, his expression mixed with awe and confusion. He had never seen anyone work with such patience, skill, and calm determination. The laughter and mockery of before had vanished. Laroa had shown, without fighting, without boasting, that she was capable. The station council had called a meeting earlier that morning. Laroa was invited, though she had not sought the attention. The humans gathered, along with a few curious aliens. Carolyn Reed, the supervisor, addressed the group. "The recent events have shown us something important," she said. "Someone who is quiet, patient, and skilled can achieve more than those who rely on loud words or mockery. Laroa has saved the station and shown us the value of true work." Laroa stepped forward. She did not speak loudly or dramatically. She simply explained the steps she had taken to stabilize the station and prevent future problems. Her instructions were clear, simple, and precise. The humans listened carefully, taking notes. The aliens, some still unsure, began to nod as they understood her methods. She did not claim greatness. She only shared what was necessary. Ethan stood beside her, quietly supporting her presence. He had learned from her example. Patience, focus, and skill mattered more than pride. "She has taught us all something important," he said quietly to Maya, who nodded. "It's not just the machines," Maya agreed. "It's how we see strength and ability. She has changed that for all of us." After the meeting, Laroa returned to her work. She moved among the machines, adjusting, repairing, and teaching humans how to do the same. Noah King worked beside her, eager to learn. "You make it look so simple," he said, carefully following her instructions. Laroa nodded. "It is not simple," she said quietly. "It is patience, focus, and understanding." He watched her work carefully, realizing that her quiet confidence and steady hands were the true strength behind her skill. The aliens who had once laughed could not ignore her now. Some approached slowly, asking questions about her methods. Zarin stepped forward hesitantly. "Can you show me how you do that?" he asked. Laroa looked at him calmly and nodded. She demonstrated the steps patiently, guiding his hands and explaining the process in simple terms. Zarin followed her instructions, surprised when the machines worked perfectly under his touch. He looked at her with new respect, understanding that her skill was not luck. It was knowledge, patience, and quiet determination. Over the next days, the station transformed. Systems ran smoothly, human and alien workers collaborated more effectively, and the mood was lighter. People whispered less, worked more efficiently, and began to trust one another. Laroa continued quietly, never demanding attention, but her influence was everywhere. Small improvements became larger, and the station functioned better than it had in years. Ethan watched her closely. He realized that her approach was changing him as well. He had always focused on speed, on completing tasks quickly, but he saw that patience and understanding could achieve results that force and rush never could. He worked beside her, learning, growing, and quietly teaching others what he had learned from her example. One afternoon, the council called another meeting. This time, they invited Laroa not just as a worker, but as an advisor. She stood calmly before the group, explaining improvements that could prevent future crises. Humans took notes, aliens asked questions, and everyone listened. Her presence alone had changed the way people approached work, cooperation, and respect. After the meeting, she walked through the station, seeing the results of her influence. Humans and aliens were working together, machines ran smoothly, and the energy systems were stable. Even the smallest workers, once overlooked or ignored, were now trusted with important tasks. She smiled quietly. Her work had made a difference, and the station had begun to reflect that. Ethan caught up to her as she moved toward the storage bay. "You know," he said softly, "you've changed more than the machines. You've changed how people see each other. Respect, patience, skill, we've all learned from you." Laroa nodded, accepting the words, but her expression remained calm. She did not need praise. She had shown her worth through action, and that was enough. That evening, the station lights glowed softly, and workers began to leave for their resting quarters. Laroa stood on a quiet platform, looking out at the ships passing in the distance. She thought about the journey so far, the laughter, the doubt, the challenges, and how far she had come. She knew there would always be challenges ahead, but she also knew that quiet skill, patience, and determination could overcome them. Humans came by to thank her, each quietly expressing gratitude. Noah King handed her a small device he had repaired following her instructions. "I did it because of you," he said. Laroa accepted it with a nod. She understood that her influence was spreading, that others were learning from her example. She felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that her actions had inspired confidence in others. Even Zarin, once her harshest critic, approached her. "I misjudged you," he said quietly. You are more capable than I thought. Thank you for showing me." Laroa nodded calmly. She did not boast. She had never needed to. Her work and patience had spoken for themselves. He walked away, thoughtful, understanding that laughter and mockery had no power against quiet skill and determination. The station council invited her to take a leadership role, overseeing maintenance and training. Laroa accepted, but she continued to work alongside humans and aliens. She did not seek authority for pride. She wanted to ensure that systems ran smoothly, that knowledge was shared, and that respect grew naturally among the workers. She taught, guided, and corrected problems with quiet confidence. Over time, the station became a model for other trade stations. Humans and aliens from other places came to learn from the system she had improved, from the teamwork she had fostered, and from the calm, steady leadership she had demonstrated. Laroa's influence spread quietly but powerfully, changing not just one station but many others across the galaxy. One evening, as she walked through the maintenance bay, Ethan joined her. "I'm proud of you," he said softly. "Not for what you fixed, but for how you changed everything." Laroa nodded, her expression calm. "I only did what was needed," she replied, but she understood that her quiet determination had made a lasting impact. The laughter was gone. Respect had replaced it, and people were working together in ways they never had before. As she looked out at the stars, she realized that the galaxy had begun to see strength differently. It was not in speed, size, or loud words. It was in knowledge, patience, skill, and quiet action. She had proven that even someone laughed at could change everything if they stayed calm, focused, and determined. Ethan stood beside her, watching the stars. "You've shown us all something important," he said. "We'll never forget it." Laroa looked at him, her eyes calm and steady. She had changed more than machines. She had changed hearts, minds, and the way people thought about strength and worth. She had done it quietly, carefully, and with patience, and the results would last far beyond the station. And in the quiet of the night, Laroa felt a small, steady pride. She had faced doubt, laughter, and fear, and she had succeeded. The galaxy would never look at her the same way again, and through her quiet work, she had begun to teach everyone that true strength was measured not by size, speed, or voice, but by patience, skill, and the courage to act when others could not. The station hummed peacefully, lights glowing, machines running, and humans and aliens working together. Laroa walked through the bay, side by side with Ethan, ready for whatever challenges came next. She knew the galaxy had begun to see her true worth, and she had quietly changed everything.